To be honest, I don't really watch that much TV. There's a few shows here and there that I rewatch every now and then, but hardly anything I keep up with that's still going on today. I do, however, pay huge attention to the world of animation, Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and of course, my favorite, Cartoon Network. This channel has such a rich and colorful history that I couldn't resist celebrating it with a countdown. And what kind of countdown would I do for this list other than my favorite shows? Now, my parents were very strict about what I could and couldn't watch growing up, so even though I'm 22, I may not have grown up or feel as fondly about certain things other people my age do. However, I did go back and see a bit of what I was missing out on, so no worries there. With my unique circumstances and experiences with the channel, hopefully I can provide an interesting list unlike anyone else's. With all that said, let's check out my top 10 favorite Cartoon Network shows.
Good show! Jolly good show!
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
As I said before, my options of what I could watch was extremely limited, so I didn't really come into Cartoon Network until halfway through stuff like Chowder and Flapjack. And as you other Cartoon Network veterans know, the late 2000s were a bit of a rough draft. No new cartoons and then a bunch of live action stuff. However, in 2010, 3 new shows premiered. 2 of them we'll get to later, and the third one was Mad. I honestly don't know how to describe it. Robot chicken for kids, I guess? It was an animated sketch show that parodied all kinds of media, with various different art styles. It did have some recurring original skits too though, like Spy vs. Spy. Or maybe that was based on something, I don't know. Either way, it's a very nostalgic show for me, whether the skits hold up or not. So of course, taking the number 10 spot is Mad.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
Now, even though my watching options were extremely restricted and limited, I would still pop into Cartoon Network every now and then because I was just that mischievous. And like I said in the last entry, I didn't really come into it until Flapjack, and of course, Chowder. But I mean, how could I have not gotten hooked on this show? It's colorful, it's vibrant, it's funny, it's extremely creative, and it does not care at all that it is a cartoon. Plus, nothing else was really on around that time besides never-ending Johnny Test marathons and live-action shows. But that's not to say Chowder is filler or anything. There are tons of things about it that are still memorable and have me rewatching to this very day. There's of course the characters like Chowder, Mung, Schnitzel, Truffles, the animation that would often switch in style for different gags, and of course the extremely self-aware humor. If any cartoon or TV show for that matter is the king of fourth wall breaks, it's Chowder. Which is why he's baking in the number 9 spot.
No money means no animation!
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
When you take stuff like Street Fighter, Dragon Ball, Naruto, and mash them all together with a bunch of crazy video game references, you get OKKO. This show takes place in a funny little world of heroes, big and small, each with their own powers and desire to be the best hero around. Now, as you can tell just by looking at it, this show is mainly focused on comedy, with its goofy art style, off-model moments, and even just the simplistic designs of the characters. However, there is a story here, and you can either take it seriously or as a parody from how well it's done. And if you have a favorite character, don't worry, they'll get something special. Of course, KO, Rad, and Enid all have their moments, but so does Mr. Gar, so does KO's mother, so does Boxman, everyone gets a turn. This show just fantastically handles its characters, humor, and animation, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. So OKKO powers up to the number 8 spot.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
Oh boy, I know I'm gonna get in trouble putting EDD Neti this low, but hey, it's still number 7 in a top 10 out of all the shows on Cartoon Network, so that's still very, very good. Now, as much as a lot of people say they loved this show, I have also heard a lot of people say that it's only fondly remembered because of nostalgia. But as someone who missed out on it growing up and didn't get to check it out until the 2010s, I say that it holds up. It doesn't feel dated or aged at all. It wouldn't matter if it aired today or aired 30 years ago, it would fit in no matter where it began. With its extremely charming and memorable characters, as well as one of the most unique art styles in TV animation history, the show is able to connect with so many people and remain in their minds even after just one episode. I highly recommend this cartoon if you haven't seen it already. Ed, Neti pulling off their scams, Johnny and Plank's hijinks, Rolf shepherding, I guess. There's bound to be something there to keep you watching more. Ed, Neti scams the number 7 spot.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
I began watching Adventure Time just a few episodes after it premiered. I was a little slow. But the episode I came in on was called Evicted, which debuted the character Marceline, and she's pretty much what got me hooked. But not the only thing though. There is also a song about sticking your feet in beehives, birdhouses, and it had a stretchy dog. The whole episode is pretty much a preview for just how weird this show could get. But it wasn't just weird, it was very special too. It may not have been the first cartoon to do a continuous storyline, but it definitely made it a trend, and it was definitely one of the best ones. They made sure to flesh out every character they could possibly think of, they built a world that you would want to live in yourself, and the entire show was just a big landmark in animation history, changing everything for the upcoming decade. So overall, it's no real secret why Adventure Time gets to explore the number 6 spot.
Song that feels so real, it'll make this door break.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
Yeah, unfortunately this is one of the very few 2000 shows I did end up missing out on, but that's Cartoon Network's fault for forgetting about Jack. Luckily, with the 5th season announced, along with all the good things I've heard about the show, I decided to go back and watch it, and oh man, did I enjoy it. It's a bit slower compared to other shows on this list, but honestly it can take all the time it needs. With the beautiful animation and backgrounds, the atmospheric music, and the tense story, you do need all this time to take it in anyways. It has great action, it has stunning visuals, and one of the greatest cartoon villains of all time, Aku. Now, the 5th season may not have ended on a high note, but there's no way it could tarnish the legacy of this series. No matter what point in time it is, I'll always go back to Samurai Jack, just like it'll always go back to number 5.
Because I knew that you knew that I knew that you knew that I knew you would cheat.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
See? I told you I went back and checked out stuff I missed out on, and that trend continues with Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's definitely one of the more unique cartoons on this list, with its creepy tones, eerie visuals, and ambient background music that perfectly fits the mood it's trying to set. I used to binge watch all kinds of videos on this show, compilations of the creepiest moments, countdowns of the scariest episodes, which eventually led to me checking out the entire show for myself, and what do you know, it became one of my favorites of all time. For those who don't know, while I don't believe in the paranormal, I do find it fascinating. I'll look up videos of creepy ghost sightings, mythical creatures, haunted house or abandoned place exploration videos. So it's almost as if Courage the Cowardly Dog was made for me with how it is. And that's not even mentioning all the comedy that goes with the show, especially involving Eustace and Muriel and how unaware they are of what's going on most of the time. Courage the Cowardly Dog is scared into the number 4 spot.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
If you've been on my channel for a while, you probably expected this to be pretty high up on the list. I mean, I did make a whole video review for it. I don't think I'd be as into it if I hadn't discovered it when I did. I joined in at the best season, Total Drama World Tour. It began in mid-2010, before Adventure Time's story really got going, so this was the very first continuous storyline that I actually picked up on. And it wasn't some crazy save-the-world adventure or anything, it was just a competition. And I had never seen Survivor or The Amazing Race growing up either, so I didn't even know it was a parody. It was just entirely something new I had never seen before. And while the show has pretty much gone downhill since then, it's always fun to go back and see the old seasons too, Island and Action. Seeing all these characters grow throughout the competition and do different things as they enter different rounds of the competition, it's all just fun. The Total Drama series is voted on to the number 3 spot.
Just bought yourself 20 more push-ups.
Thank you!
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
Codename Kids Next Door. As far as I remember, this is the first cartoon I missed out on that I went back to check out, mainly because it was still airing at the time when I hopped in. The show was pretty much done, so I didn't follow anything and only caught reruns, and it wasn't until I checked out all the episodes later on that I understood just how amazing this series is. Despite me being a teenager by the time I checked out the show, I still felt like I could join the kids next door. The characters were fun and friendly, it had a continuous plot of its own, and it's one of the most creative cartoons I have ever seen in my entire life. Don't get me wrong, Adventure Time is creative too, but it constantly breaks its own rules, or doesn't have any rules at all. The Kids Next Door has very well explained and fleshed out rules to the world it built, and the show is super strict about following them and keeping them very consistent. In fact, they have an explanation for just about anything. The laws for staying in the K&D, how decommissioning works, they have acronyms for all their weapons, and even the episode titles. And with the possibility of a Galactic Kids Next Door series, it seemed like they had even more ideas in mind, and I really would have loved to see them. But for now, Codename Kids Next Door is commissioned to the number 2 spot.
Hey, he smiled at me.
Is that it?
No, that is not it.
You probably knew Total Drama was going to be somewhere on this list if you've been on my channel for a while. But here, it doesn't matter how long you've been on my channel, you know Regular Show is my number 1. I've made a whole video review for it, it's appeared in several of my countdowns so far. And when I'm talking about my favorite TV shows in general, not just cartoons, it still manages to end up at the number 1 spot for me. I don't know what to say about the show that I haven't already. The characters are very real and connect to me on a personal level, especially with all the trials and development they go through. It's taught me some very valuable life lessons that I genuinely have taken to heart, and when it comes to characters, it's hard to even think of a single one that I dislike, except CJ. Regular Show was the very first cartoon that I caught from the very beginning and watched through all the way to the very end, and I would gladly do it all again several times over. And this has been my top 10 favorite Cartoon Network shows, as Regular Show takes its regular spot at number 1.
My mom! Get out! It was worth it!